City Council Committee on Finance will come to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilors Kadim?
Here.
Dion?
Here.
Hart? Kilby? Pereira?
Here.
Ponte? Reposo?
Here.
Tiff?
Here.
President Kamara.
Here, Councilor Kilby and Councilor Ponte, I don't believe will be attending to their prior commitments. Councilor Hart will be here later on. He just has a commitment that he has to attend to, and then he'll be here later on. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit this meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and not deemed acknowledged and permissible. No one has signed up for citizens' input time, so we proceed, go on to discussion for the proposed fiscal year 2026 municipal budget as follows. First, we will discuss facilities and community maintenance, Director of Operations, Facilities, Streets and Highways, Solid Waste, Parks, Cemetery, Trees, and Snow Removal. If you'd like to all come down, we can just. Please just state your name and what department you're with, so the people at home that are watching will know who we're talking to, please. Thank you.
Emily Arkey, Interim Director of Finance.
Al Oliver, Director of City Operations.
Charlie Denby, Director of Community Maintenance.
Council seat 7, Council Pozo.
Hey, Mr. President, just a point of clarification. Are we doing department by department or just all of it?
No, you mean, we'll take them in whatever order you want to give them. They're here representing all the departments I
Okay.
just ruled out.
Fair enough. Thank you.
This will
Good
make it
evening,
easier,
folks.
Councilor,
I appreciate it.
instead of going back and forth.
That works for me. All right, just throw some questions at you and see what you have for answers for it. First is natural gas. We're on page 77 of the facilities budget. I noticed that your projection for FY '25 was 214,000, but then the proposed budget for FY '26 is back to what it was revised the previous year. So did natural gas costs come out lower than expected?
No.
Can you just repeat that question, Counselor? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
that's all right. Page 77, natural gas line item. So projected in FY '25 was 214,361, and then FY '26 proposed is the same as FY '25 revised budget of 165. So I'm just curious, did natural gas costs come out lower than expected?
It did.
Okay.
The escalation was predominantly in the electric.
Okay, yeah, so you want to, that's my next question, so you want to touch on that a little bit? The difference of the electric and the gas and where that
Yeah.
came out to be?
So the increases in electric have substantially increased dramatically across the board on
Just the
on
rates?
everyone. Absolutely.
Okay, I figured that was the case. All right, same page, down to custodial services for the police. It's roughly a little less than a $40,000 decrease. So was that a move classification, Emily? Was it?
Yeah, it was just separating them out better. So if you noticed before, there was just the two line items for City Hall and Police. And so it's been just separated out and distributed, I'm going to say more appropriately, between City Hall, Police, and Fire. And so I think in total, there isn't too much of a dollar change, but now that we have them categorized out properly, it'll work out.
Okay. Do all custodial services go through the facilities budget for all the municipal buildings?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so
Except for libraries is in libraries, that's the only one.
is in libraries.
Yeah,
So
that just changed.
custodial services for fire is 14,000, which seems pretty small. So is that just a different setup, how that operates?
That's through the headquarters. That's only
Okay,
for the
it's just for
headquarters. Only
headquarters.
for the headquarters, absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, going down, same page, R&M on the vehicle R&M. So it's a drop a little bit, about 15,000. HVAC is the same as the prior year, but much higher than the projected number. And then buildings and grounds is a fluctuation. So I don't know if you want to touch on all three of those points.
Sure, the HVAC.
Yep.
When I first arrived, we were really limited on doing any HVAC work, heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
Why is that?
It would just, we just weren't capturing that work, but now we are. We've got contracts going out, and we're doing preventive maintenance, and we have a work order system with the company at this point. This is a state contract company.
Okay. And then buildings and grounds?
That's a lot of, that line is where we capture a lot of the repairs, a lot of the smaller contracts. What we do right about this time of the year, right after the budget season, we'll stop preparing contracts for blanket orders so that we have numerous contracts that we can work off of. And that's really where we keep the operation of all the buildings up.
Okay. Same page on other professional services. Emily, I don't know if you can kind of break out what that is defined as, because I look at the FY '25 revised of 188, and now we're down to 50.
So that one, some of those items were kind of, I'm gonna say, reallocated out more appropriately. The other professional services in the year for 2024 that you're looking at, that was upwards of $100,000, was having charges that probably should have been more into other lines in there, and so, but based off of that number, it was increased for 25, and so we started shifting this year where things are charged to make sure that they're charged accordingly. So with those updated numbers, we were able to kind of shift the budget to where it really should have been. Most of the other purchase services now should be for, or the other professional, I'm sorry, should be for outside contractors and doing like the bid work and the spec build out and stuff like that. Architecture.
Design services.
Design
Thank you.
services.
I was trying to
Okay,
get that word
was
out.
gonna be- That was gonna be my next question. Where do the design services fall into this line item? Is that where it falls?
Yes.
That's where it falls.
Okay. And can you just clarify the difference between other professional service and other purchase services?
So other purchase services is the pest control.
Okay.
There isn't really a pest control line, so at this point in time, it's,
That's where it finds itself.
yeah.
Okay, cool. All the way to the bottom of that page is office upgrades. So the line item remained at 38,000 from the prior year, though the projected was only 79. I'm just curious, particular office upgrades for, is the particular building?
Buildings.
Buildings.
We've been using it predominantly for this building
Okay.
at this point. But those lines will come out of the, that buildings and grounds / office upgrades. So if we're going to renovate a space, we'll use it out of that office upgrades.
Okay, and does that include any office upgrades you did here in the city hall?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right. That's all I have for facilities. I'll yield to my colleagues to move on until
Council
next one.
C2, Council Dion?
Good evening.
Good evening.
On that same page, business rental is up 17,500, say page 77. $17,550. It's up to 52.5. Why is that?
That was the transfer from traffic. Remember how she talked about not having the building rental anymore because it was switched over, so now it's one space. And so
Okay.
her budget was
So that's
essentially
the
moved into here.
combined
Yeah, it's
number.
actually a little bit of a savings because her budget was 21,000, so since it was
Okay.
a $17,000 increase, there was a little savings.
Electrical supplies is up 46,000.
So the budget's level, it's the expected expenses that are 79,000.
So council, this is where we get, because we don't have a plumber and electrician on board, we have labor and materials for those services,
So we're at 125,000 for both.
for both.
And that's outsourcing?
That's outsourcing and materials. A lot of times to save, we'll buy directly, as the municipality, we'll buy directly, where we don't get an upcharge from the contractor.
I guess this question would go to Emily. On page 76, it shows salaries and wages, 1,018,288. But if you look at page 78, total facilities personnel is only 968,288, which is $50,000 less.
So it's the overtime that's not included. So there's overtime for 40,000 and then overtime special events. We obviously don't have that detailed out to a specific person at this point in time, so that's where the difference comes in.
Okay, but the $900,000 number is the number you're using in the appropriation for the budget?
So if you look at just this first salaries and wages permanent, that shows the 912,000. So if you look at the detail sheet, the base salary is the 912,000. And then the longevity obviously matches to longevity, so then the overtime is not included on the detail sheet, and then going from there, you can see that, it's the snow stipend and the hoisting stipend is the 16,650, and then the other remaining items make up the total additional pay. So it will include the 50,000 in the appropriation for the, overtime.
Okay. At the moment, that's all I have. I'll yield.
Thank you, Council. Council seat 8, Council Teth.
This for Miss Emily. Hello. On page 76, salary and wage. I'm sorry. Showing 947K projected 708, but 2026 budget is set at 912K. Why?
It's from those 3 vacancies you see listed. Unfortunately, they've been vacant all year at this point, so that's the money that hasn't been expended for 25, but we are still hoping to fill those positions. During the contract negotiations, we're hoping that those will have an increase so that we can actually fill them with people that are qualified, and so then it'll hopefully not be a vacancy any longer.
Is there a time frame that you had?
So the contract negotiations, no, we unfortunately do not have any sort of time frame. We're just working through them, but it should be, we're hoping sometime in the next 3 months.
Okay.
Counselor, if I could, when Emily's talking about contract negotiations, that's with the unions?
Yep.
Yep.
Then also page 78. Can you explain for the, sorry, I think my class. See. The administration assistant, the 13,000K.
So that's the total additional pay for the service out of rank, and I think Al can speak better to how the service out of rank was decided, because I'm not as versed in it as he is. For Melissa.
For Melissa, yes. So Melissa, she's she does project management billing. So part of our job as facilities, we do contract oversight. And if there's an MSBA project, if there's a capital project, she'll be doing the billing with some of our OPMs, and at times she's doing the billing when we don't have an OPM.
Is
That
it
was a stipend that was negotiated with her.
It's not part of her union job description, and so that's why there's an additional stipend to cover that work.
Okay. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Council. Council C1, Council Kadim.
Thank you. My colleague brings up some good questions. So just to follow up though, on the stipend for the service out of rank, so is the stipend based on the collective bargaining agreement, or is it an individual agreement that's outside of the CBA?
It was negotiated with the employee, and that's what we came up
But
with.
the employee's in the union, right?
Absolutely.
Correct. So it's one of those, because I know the council has had issues in the past with stipends, and, stipends being given out to individuals. So this is not a stipend that has been negotiated with the union, and is from what I understanding, is a stipend specifically for that one individual.
That one individual. They know about it, but it's just not something that,
I think they're viewing it technically as a service out of rank, and not, I know we call it a stipend, but I think it's more seen as a service out of rank, and that's why the union is okay with it.
So I guess I struggle with, it's a service out of rank, so typically when you perform a service out of rank, you're performing somebody else's job duties. So whose job is she performing?
A project manager. And so because she's an administrative assistant, and that's the bulk of the work that she does, by taking on that additional work of supporting the project management that Al described is really where that comes in.
And where do I find the project manager in the budget?
I don't think that the general fund has many of them. I think they're more in water. that has the project managers. And so it's not, that project manager position isn't a union position, which is why she can't be put into the position.
So I recognize that, I guess, but if somebody was doing a service out of rank, so that means the position is vacant, you have it budgeted somewhere, so you're saying that,
No, that's why we're budgeting for the service out of rank here, because there isn't a vacant position to put her in. Otherwise, we wouldn't be budgeting for it at all. We would just have a vacant position that she was backfilling.
so I guess my argument is, then you wouldn't pay somebody service out of rank if the position is not, we don't have a project manager position budgeted.
In this department, correct.
So how do you pay somebody service out of rank if they are essentially doing the function of expectations that are in this department?
Well, I mean, with the additional funds, you're not gonna find a human being doing any work for $13,000, right? So.
No,
yeah.
I recognize
Yeah.
that, but what I'm saying is if I've got a clerical position and somebody goes and does my assistant, I'm gonna take treasurer's office. If you've got a clerical person doing the assistant treasurer's job, then they would get a stipend, a service out of rank for doing that
difference.
work. But I'd go in the budget and I see that the assistant treasurer is budgeted for, but there's a vacancy. We don't have in here a job, right, a vacancy that says
Correct.
project manager.
Correct.
So I would say, and I guess I would make the argument that those roles and responsibilities are falling within the scope of everybody else that's in this department, right? So why would you do a service out of rank?
It's not that it's falling within the duties of that department. I mean, we should technically add in a whole nother position into this budget, but not me. Al has found that he doesn't necessarily need that at this point in time, so that's why it was done this way. So instead of adding a whole nother body and a whole nother position, when she's able to just take on those duties, part of the time, it was done this way. Again, I mean, it's something that has been in conversation about the positions and maybe reworking a job description and having a job that actually suits that better, but at this point, with the union, she's still in that role, so.
I mean, I can expound on some of the other things that she does in the department. She
No,
does.
but I guess and I'm not,
You're correct.
maybe it's just a philosophical difference that we have. I feel like when you start negotiating stipends outside of collective bargaining unit and the members in the union, I have issue with that, right? So then we go back to every other administrative assistant. Administrative assistants do a host of work, right? And I'm sure the job descriptions say as other duties assigned. So then one would make an argument, what does that entail,
Correct.
right? So now you've created a situation where one administrative assistant is getting $13,000 for a stipend, and then we've got other administrative assistants in the same union doing potentially other work that has not been listed in their job description. So do we run the risk of potentially not giving them a stipend and creating morale issues? And then, I guess if we've gone through the union and the union's okay with not pushing on it, then that's fine. We've had this conversation about stipends. From my standpoint, if somebody is doing the job, then they should be paid for the services that are performing. But I think there's a process for that, whether it's in the collective bargaining agreement. I just hate to see stipends being given out if it's not a true added
Correct.
job description, right? Like an added function that you wouldn't think would be in the department. That's all I'm
It definitely is something that isn't typically in that job description, but I think Nick could maybe speak better to how this was fully fleshed out with the union and give you more information on that back end of it.
saying. Okay.
So, Council, this was one of the items that I did have as part of a reorg process.
Reorg. So we're reorging the reorg, is that what you're saying?
It's just, it's one of those items that
I'm okay
we were
with the
hoping to
reorg
get.
on the reorg. I don't disagree with a reorg is needed, I would suggest. My colleague also mentioned the salaries, wages permanent, so, and I don't know that I understood the response that was given. Were you saying that the projection for FY '25 is lower because of the vacancies?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the difference between, and I think he might have asked this, the difference between FY '26 and the FY '25 revised? Why is that? So FY '25 revised was 947. And then we're down to 912, so did we lose a position?
No, so, some of those budgeted positions, I think it's the way that they were budgeted last year with the estimated increases that were in there. So this, the majority of the union positions that are in here are part of, I shouldn't say the majority, but there's some of the positions that are in here that are part of a bargaining unit that already had a settled contract agreement, and I think that the anticipated increase was added onto their salaries as well on accident. So
Okay.
there was a couple of those types of things that were in there, and then when the transfer-ins came in for the actual agreement that was settled, I think some of them, it was the additional amount was added in, even though it was already kind of budgeted for. It was looked at just their salary to what their new salary was, and that amount was put in. So I think it was just kind of overestimated.
And then,
And that's the same through a lot of these.
I think my colleague in seat 7 asked this question, and clearly I wasn't paying attention. That's why I got detention in school a lot. I was talking to Michelle, you know.
Tisk, counselor.
I know. The building rentals, the $12,000 increase was for what again?
For the parking facilities that they were renting previously, and that contract had ended, and so around the same time, facilities had started a new agreement, so her budget is zeroed out, and it was moved it over there, and he's paying essentially one agreement now for a
Okay.
shared space.
And I'm going to admit I'm 0 for 2 now. And then he mentioned other professional services. So it was 188,000 going down to 50,000.
Yeah, so it was, a lot of those were kind of divided out better to where it should have been.
Oh, you moved them in.
Yeah.
Recategorized. Okay.
And in general, some of the budgets kind of had gone down too, so that's why it's not necessarily a clean line of that 188 is fully dispersed into the 26 budget, because then we found some excess that we were able to remove, so.
All right, and then I just want to discuss quickly. So the FY, I had it here somewhere. I believe the FY 25 FTEs was 11 when I looked at the budget, and then so we're at 17.5
11.
FTEs for this year. Did we add, or
I
did
don't
we
know,
just?
11 doesn't seem,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying no, but we definitely didn't add any positions to
Okay.
that department, so.
it seemed lower. Maybe I was looking at the wrong one, but I have it written down here at 11. I could be wrong. I just want to make sure. I know we didn't discuss adding anything. I've seen some vacancies, but with regards to just staffing itself, overall general staffing, I know you've got a number of building projects that are going on. And then we talked about a reorg, and I don't necessarily disagree that I think we might need to look at a reorg just to make sure that you've got the resources that you need and we've got the appropriate staffing. So just looking at facilities itself with all the workload that you have, the projects that have funding has been appropriated for or authorized for, and you've got to complete them. Do you have enough staffing to handle that? If not, what does your staffing plan look like just for facilities?
Well, facilities is very light. With the amount of work that we have planned, it's very light. Part of my reorg was to convert one of those electricians to a craftsman, per se, so that when I say a craftsman, I mean a carpenter. They can build up walls, they can do ceilings, they can assist, so that would be an additional help for us. We do have some laborers in here, and that we're hoping to convert those into more of another carpenter. So doing a lot of in-house work is vital for us, but we're a maintenance company first, right? So that's the priority that we have to maintain all the buildings and do inspections and repair a lot of things. So lately we have been reaching out to try to do more work at the parks. We're doing more work at the cemetery, so we're really reaching out right now to make sure that everything is maintained well.
So can I ask you, maybe you don't have this answer, because I went down the same road that you went down in terms of trying to expand DBW, right, in terms of making them being able to do more internally without having to go outside. And so when we were starting to hire for positions, we were looking exactly for what you were saying, other key components that people would bring to the table in terms of being an electrician or plumbing and things like that. So trying to diversify the experience that we had, so it's not just solely labor. So, but the problem, it worked well for about a year, 2 years, right? And then all of a sudden you become too reliant on the individuals before us, and then it starts taking away from other projects. So knowing, knowing that for myself, what do you, I guess, what are you looking to do in terms of, you know, percentages? And I won't hold you to it, but I'm just curious in terms of what your model would be like. Are you looking to do 40% of the work in-house, 60% out, like just going outside, outsourcing it, you know, going to bid for stuff, or what's the overall plan for the department?
So what I do my morning meetings on a Monday, we have small, medium, and large projects. Obviously, the large projects are, I'm using the procurement values. So the large projects are your capital projects. The medium projects are things that we may assist in repair prior to any contractors going in. All the smaller projects we're taking care of. So if you were to say probably 1/3 of our projects, but the volume, we're not talking dollar-wise. We're talking about the actual work that we're gonna be doing. So
Right.
for an example, case in point, the DCM building, we went out to bid on that work. The cost, we had to do some value engineering, so we pulled out the interior work inside the building, so the break room, the office area. What we did is we appropriated some of that ARPA money, and we're doing that in-house. So right now, we're 50% done. I urge everyone to take a quick peek. It's night and day, the break room. Right now, we're going, now the next phase is the office space. So we're doing mini splits, we're revising the appearance of that location. So we're doing some of the things that we can't really afford sometimes, but for the most part, we're maintenance first and then project secondary.
So in terms of just the smaller projects, so it looks like you got about 7, so hopefully I counted right. 7 of your 17 FTEs look like those are more of the skilled laborer, right? The carpenters, the electrician, the painter, the plumber that would be able to do some of your smaller projects. So do you have any goal or expectation to enhance that to be able to cover the general maintenance and repairs for all the facilities? So are you looking to get that from 7 to 10 or 7 to 15? And I'm not saying, obviously, not in this budget or next year's budget, but over a 5-year period.
So we have hired some MEO groundskeepers that have become really talented. So those two may be working at that point. So shortly within the next year or so, we would hope to move those folks into a different category, because they're very talented, and to have them make that dollar amount, it just doesn't work for those groups. But obviously, another 2, 3.
You mean the dollar amount for the salary for the
For the
groundskeeper?
MEOs, the groundskeepers, we got a couple talented folks there, and those folks were part of my reorg as well, so.
Okay. Thank you. I yield for now.
There you go, sir. Council C5, Council Pereira.
I was a little confused about the people at the library. Don't you put custodians there if they're short? And, I mean, the money comes out of the library budget, but aren't they under you?
So, Council, the cleaning custodials,
Right.
that's a vendor that every 3 years will go out to bid on.
So there's a
And
vendor.
They are the same vendor that we have for the
Here.
fire and facilities. But that budget is captured by the library.
Right.
So, but that's a vendor that's a
But you
cleaning
handle
service.
that vendor?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, we
That's, I
manage
thought you were
Yeah,
handling
correct.
that vendor. Because City Hall here, we've gotten rid of some, well, not, we haven't gotten rid of custodians, but as they've retired out, we've brought in a private. Mr. Denmead, how many MEO laborers do you have in the park department right now?
13,
You have 13?
13,
Is that counting your foreman?
that's counting my
And
junior.
maintenance?
It's counting the working foreman.
Okay, not park maintenance.
That's not
Position.
counting park maintenance or the supervisor.
Okay, so other than that, that's 13.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of years ago, I believe we got money to get some lawnmowers. And then
Council, can you speak into the microphone, please, so people can hear you?
a few weeks ago, I heard that we had 3 lawnmowers down. But we got that money last
Yes,
year.
They're ordered, Counselor.
Are they ordered?
Yeah.
And
they
we're
are.
getting them?
They're ordered from Ritchie and Clapper. They're ordered now.
And then I heard something about, we were looking at electric lawnmowers,
Battery operated, Council.
battery
yes.
operated.
Yeah.
honest to God, battery operated are not gonna work.
No.
On the parks that we have, the hills that we have, and those batteries are so expensive after to buy. And I know from experience at, when we looked at them, it's really not what, you think it will be. Has an analysis been done, Emily, on what amount of money we spend on plumbers and electricians? What the total cost is for the year, what it costs the city for any plumber or electrician that we need, versus paying more than what, 58,000? Because you're not gonna get a plumber or an electrician for that.
No, we agree, that we know we need to do more in that. The problem is it's just part of the union bargaining, so it's not that we disagree on it, it's the fact that the way the bargaining works, if we just go in and wanna jump up one position, there's other positions around saying, why not do that for us? So we're still working on it through the CBA process, but we're aware and we're in support of it, and we know that it'll save us money in that sense.
Did we hire one electrician or plumber from Diamond?
The police department
recently?
did.
The police department did?
Yes.
And that individual will stay with us for a certain number of years? Are we doing something like that? To try to get a plumber or an electrician that they can then do their journeyman, whatever, to get their full license, but they'll guarantee that they'll stay with us X amount of years or something like that?
Yeah,
Have
they
we
were over as
tried
an
that?
intern. They just hired one, he was over as an intern. They get a couple a year, and this one wanted to and is able to stay on and will do that apprenticeship process underneath Chris. So we are doing that and grabbing them whenever they're available and whenever they want to, and we can grab them. They are doing that there.
I think that's just an innovative way
Right.
to try to get somebody on, as long as they're willing to stay, not come, get your license and leave. Part of DCM, I believe, and I'm not sure if Park Department as well, but we're paying people to get their CDL. Are we only paying the individuals that work in those specific departments, or is that open to anybody in the city? Because I heard one of the directors of one of our departments was going for CDL, and I think I'd rather have our workers do it.
Right, so I believe that one, I'm not sure how that occurred, whether that person was already a CDL driver, I'm not sure, but,
And goes for renewal.
yeah.
All right, I just think, we do have a lot of people in parks, I'm happy to hear. Now, summertime, a lot of these people have longevity pay that I see, which means they have a lot of vacation time as well, which they deserve. Chances are they're gonna take it in the summertime. So is there any thought of, I don't know what kind of programs they have for the summer, but is there any thought on maybe hiring, part-time help in the summer? Would that help us, rather than paying overtime? Is that something that either one of you have thought about?
Yeah, that's a collective bargaining issue, Counselor.
Still.
We do have summer interns that come in. and-
Well, we have the CETA program,
Right.
they
But-
used to have that, I don't know what they call it today. But are we utilizing those services, or Youth Build, or something that? has
Wherever
that-
we can, if there's any type of volunteering or internships, we do have those folks coming in with us. And we're working with Holly right now to get some teams going.
Good. And the last thing I have, and I'm gonna throw it out, there was a digester that we had talked about, and I had heard about it. And that digester will crush up trash, kind of, and it uses sludge. And it costs us a lot of money to haul sludge out of the city. And this would help us with our trash. Where is that, Mr. Olivera?
So, Council, we've had numerous meetings with our ESCO, our energy service company, which is Amoresco at this time. We've had numerous discussions. Seth was our city administrator was part of those discussions. We've had them come down, make presentations to us, and that's still ongoing. But it's something that I have to take the lead at this point with other folks in the city. But the digester is the right thing to do.
I think
It
it
won't
is.
it won't eat trash per se, but the sludge that we're paying $3 million to discard elsewhere.
Right.
That would take that. So we're working off to making sure that we have, it
So that
takes
would be 3
PFAS.
million extra in the budget if we could get rid of our sludge through the digester.
We would start doing internal usages and then hopefully expand to other communities, but that's ongoing right now.
And if you expanded, we'd make more money. We kind of talked about the transfer station before, about that. And if we wait, you're gonna have another community that's gonna come up with that, and they're gonna be making money on us. Maybe that's something that, send back to the mayor, maybe that's something that this council would be interested in, and maybe we need to have a demonstration of that and see if that's feasible. Those are the things we're looking at. How do we make more money, generate more revenue into the city without going into the pockets of taxpayers? And I honestly think, Mr. Olivera, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I think you have too many hats that you have to wear, and there's only 40 hours in a week. I think that we need to get somebody now. Ms. Smith has retired, am I correct on that?
Correct.
When was her last day?
Last Friday?
Last Friday. I didn't know it was her last day. I would have sent her a note or something. How many years was she here? 30, 40?
45, I believe.
45 years. And it would have been nice to thank her for the 45 years that she put in. We need somebody back at DCM. I mean, Mr. Denmead can't be doing parks and at DCM. And we need a procurement officer. And I also think we need director of tourism, but that's my wish list, because I want people to see the good in Fall River. Other than that, on the list that you gave us, Emily, I don't know if you would do that today or on another day, but just to highlight for the public some of the things that were changed in this, I think some of the changes were good.
Yeah, I think my hopes is to be able to talk about that once they're released
Okay.
from this, if we can. Otherwise, I'm happy to talk about it now. I just don't know if we want to.
It's up to the president and my colleagues if they want
We
you
can
to
hold
share
off and
that.
wait till these two gentlemen
But
get their
I
questions
yield
answered.
my questions. Thank you. And you both are working as hard as you can and do a good job. And with what you have, I think we need more workers, and I would push for that, but money is always a problem. With that, I yield, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. Council seat 7, Council Pozo.
Thank you. I just want to I want back to the facilities question. So I brought this up last year when we talked about the 3 vacant positions, the 2 electricians, 1 plumber. And at the time, City Administrator Aiken said the same thing about it's a union negotiation thing. So 1 year has passed. We're still in the same boat that we were last year. I guess, I understand it's a union issue. So the 177,149 that are the vacant positions, at the end of last year, that money rolls over, correct?
Into free cash.
Into free cash?
Yeah.
Okay. So, which leads me to my next question. Mr. Oliver, the fact that you have essentially a shortage in your department for the amount of positions you hold, yet your overtime budget's only $40,000. So I would have anticipated that that line item would have increased because of it.
So that you can thank me for. Stop it. You can thank me for that.
Okay.
So essentially, because the goal is 40,000. So with a full complement, right, you would have that salaries and permanent, salaries and wages permanent, fully utilized. And if that was fully utilized, that is the amount of overtime you would need. But because we have those vacancies and there are extra people backfilling, more of the overtime gets utilized, and to budget for both in both areas, right? So we always want to obviously fully budget to fill the positions.
Yeah.
We don't want to then increase that budget that's only needed because there's vacancy savings happening. So it's just to help on doubling down on budgeting for things that, it's because we have that, we're able to save in one place and kind of overspend in another line. But the theory ultimately is that that will switch over when it's filled.
Okay. So based on that, FY24 actuals was 67,000. FY25 project was 59,000. Where do we find ourselves right now as of this moment in this current fiscal year for overtime, now that we're almost done with it? Are we anywhere in that ballpark between those two numbers?
Yes, the 59 includes us projecting out for these last couple of pay periods.
Okay.
So it is part of that. So we're right in that realm, probably within a couple of $1,000s.
So the reality is probably in FY26, assuming those positions don't change, you're probably looking at somewhere in the 60,000 range for overtime.
Correct.
So Counselor, for the last couple of years, I've spoken to the CFO, and I've asked the CFO, we're getting close to the overtime line. I'm gonna start using salary savings, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
So, help me understand on the electrician and plumber situation. So, in order for you to remove that from this budget, that's a union negotiation situation?
So to remove the positions from being funded,
Or reclassify them?
to reclassify them, that's a union. To
a
remove
union,
them from the
yes.
budget, I mean, technically, we could just not fund it, but again, our goal is to shift the positions or grow them or have it, so to have that base there, we think is helpful and ideal, so that we
Okay.
can work towards that.
Sure.
So what I will say, Counselor, and Emily is right, to be able to increase the lines for an electrician and a plumber, the union has to agree to those items. And it's not fair and equitable to all the other employees,
Sure.
but in the past, with the same type of union, they've always had hard times with doing that, and they're still having a hard time with doing that.
I mean, you're not gonna get an electrician for $59,000, so that's just the rate of reality. So you have outside contractors doing all your electrical work then, at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Annually, we'll go out with a contract and we'll procure a contractor. And the last couple years, the contractor has been a electrician, so he doesn't have any other employees,
Just him and himself.
just him and himself.
So where is that reflected in the expenses line item for facilities? Is that under electrical supplies?
Yes.
Okay, so that contract's, now, Clara, can you break out that number then? So for electrical supplies of 125, how much of that is the contract itself for the outside electrician?
We typically do a $50,000 blanket, up to $50,000.
Okay, so is that
And-
one or
and-
two in that line item?
That's one.
One blanket of 50,000?
One blanket for the plumber, one blanket for the electrician. So what we do is strategically, what we do is we'll buy the materials, have those up front where we're not having any increases to that contract.
So it's about 75,000 for the materials.
Okay, so reality, just with the plumber, the electricians alone, from the salaries that you're saving without the positions filled and that line item, it's about $18,000, which essentially could theoretically be used for overtime if you needed it.
We
Correct.
could.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I share the concern of Council Pereira is that, or Council Kadim, I think all of us, in the sense that not enough people, in the amount of, I said the other night, nice list of things you got to do, but not enough people to do it, essentially, so. But I'm glad that there's at least some flexibility for the idea of some overtime, so that's a good thing. Do we have a sense of a timeline on this negotiation piece of when this could change? I feel like I asked that last year, and.
You're right. We thought it would be last year.
Yeah.
So we are in negotiations again right now, so, I mean, I think as you know, we never know when a deal will be done, but we are in the middle of them, and we have been for about a month at least already, so we're hoping in the next couple of months, before the summer's up, we're hoping to have it settled.
But just to clarify that this is not an ongoing negotiation from last year.
But it was a one-year contract last year.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
So was this brought up in last year's negotiations?
yeah.
HR
It's brought
director
up every year.
And what was the end result? Just didn't
There was a
happen?
slight increase, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what,
Well, no, I'm saying about the positions themselves.
Yeah.
So that just never happened in the negotiations.
It didn't get to that stage yet. It wasn't as detailed as it should be because it was a one-year contract.
and there's nobody in those positions to push for their positions to be increased, to vote on it, so we're working through it.
Okay. And then when you mentioned what I call reorg part two, it seems like obviously there's a larger reorg part two that happens, but are there these smaller parts that could be done as opposed to a second reorg? Are there smaller parts like this particularly that could happen that would get things rolling?
This is a key component, is
Yeah.
the union, not just these positions,
Okay.
but
And
all
You
other
gotta
positions.
get over that hurdle first.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. All right, are we good to move on streets and highways, or do we have more?
We have another council.
Okay, I'll yield to the floor. Go ahead.
Thank
I
you. Council
just need
C5,
to-
Council Pereira.
Is it my turn? I just needed to say, with ASME, for example, we had a big problem with the water department with water filtration. If you worked in filtration, there's certain certificates and different degrees that you have to work there, versus somebody that was in water maintenance. And dispatchers and clerks in City Hall are all in the same union, and they all do different jobs. So last year, I believe, there was an MOU for water filtration, where we could have bumped them up, and they worked on that with the union. And I think this year dispatchers are trying to make a big push, because I've heard from them, because other dispatchers in Somerset, Swansea, Dayton, that don't get the number of calls we get, are getting a lot more money. I mean, as it is, if they have a day off, they're working in other communities to make up the difference. So it's, I understand what Emily is saying, that if there is nobody in that position, then there's nobody to fight for more money. But I'd just like to see really what the cost is. Is it worth us just hiring somebody outside? Maybe it is, no benefit package or whatever, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I just don't have a real solid number on that.
I will say, one of the, I think, complications that we've talked about in length with that idea, because obviously we've talked about the cost benefit side of it, but it's also by having an outside person and by contracting out that work, the level of control we have over when they work and what they're doing
Is
and
minimal.
competing with other jobs gets to be not ideal. So that's part of our thought process with it too.
Okay, I yield.
There you
Do you
go.
want to do streets and highways?
Yeah, if we're,
Council seat 7. you have the floor.
yeah, if we're comfortable, move on. And just to comment to my colleague, I think too, my only concern with the lack of those positions filled is that, and I think it is a good point to say sometimes worth outsourcing these things. I guess my concern on the other side of it is that you may not get to all those projects that you want to get to because your blanket's 50,000, you hit 50,000, you're done. So I guess that's my concern, that is it stifling what the progress that could be being made right now because we're kind of limited to that blanket, unless you of course increase it.
Counselor, that we're not limited to that.
Yeah.
That's our starting point. If it gets to a
Okay.
point where we're getting close to that,
All right.
we're gonna make things
Well, that's why
happen.
when
We're
you
not gonna
said,
go.
when you said
Yeah.
blanket 50,000, I said,
Yeah.
okay, you're up, once you hit 50, you're done.
That's the initial.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
initial. yeah.
So let me ask the follow-up question then. Have we raised it since? With
We
the work?
we have exceeded by a change order by 25%, so we have slightly increased that, but we've never had to do a second procurement at that time.
Okay, so it's still within reason at that point?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, as long as it doesn't stifle the progress, because I think my concern from the other night was,
Yeah.
and you said some of these projects are 75% done. You know, if that 25% is electrical,
Yeah.
No,
You-
no,
you're
not,
stuck.
that's
Okay.
not even an issue.
fair enough,
Absolutely.
fair enough, I appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna move on to streets and highways then, since my colleagues are good with that. So page 80. Clarification on, just wanna make sure I'm on the right line item here, is the snow stipend, and this is a general question, Emily, for you. Snow stipends in general, have they increased since last year's budget?
I don't believe so.
They have not, okay. All right, I'll ask another snow question later then. So those are all the same as prior. Rentals and leases, it's down 10,000. It's on page 80, about the middle of the page, from last year's revised budget. What changed?
So that's for renting equipment when repairs are needed on what's owned, and I think that buying new equipment that's happened through the ARPA dollars and improving that capital has reduced that need.
Okay. Mr. Alva, do you have a sense of what you're currently leasing for streets and highways? That's
Well,
still
there are
remains-
times where we need some type of a machinery, like a small Kubota or a small front-end loader.
Yep.
There are times when we need specialized equipment to do the work, and that's what we use that for.
Are you still borrowing, are interdepartments still borrowing from one another?
So if it's the whole city. If we
Yeah.
need to do something without having to rent it, we can work an agreement with another department. We have no problem with that, and we've done it to other departments as well.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, essentially.
Absolutely.
We do it unless we can't, and then we go out and rent it if
Correct.
we need to. Okay, cool. 2 lines down, other professional services, that's a $15,000 increase, give or take. You wanna break that out for me? There's a change there.
That would be more of a design services as well, or assistance from OPMs, any type of design OPM type services.
And I think that was under other purchase services before, but if you remember in the last budget, we talked about how it was under other professional services, so I think we were just trying to put them all in the same category when it's the same thing.
Okay. And then on page 81, at the bottom of the page is the 4 vacancies. First question is, are there still 4 vacancies?
No, one of them's in the process of being hired right now, the working foreman.
Okay.
Paperwork might have already started, because it was mentioned to me the other day. I don't even know what day it is anymore, but very recently it was mentioned. So they're very much working on it. These ones are fluid. I mean, if, this is one of the big changes that actually came through, in the package that was sent. There was additional vacancies listed here than there should have been. There was 3 additional positions in here because the positions are unfortunately very fluid in this department.
Yeah.
We saw that, okay, we have this many vacancies, so those were thrown in, but then they were still listed above as filled. So in right sizing that, that's kind of why this updated dramatically from the previous pages. But even after I did this, you know, a couple days later, they were like, oh, well, this one's, I was like, this is how it's going down. So the price is still the same, so that's why we just left it, because it's too fluid.
Okay. And then the motor equipment repair person, there's not another person in the department. Oh, there is. There's 2 more.
There is.
So there's 2 of 3 that are filled.
Counselor, can I just interrupt there?
Of course.
The foreman for the motor equipment operator,
Yes.
we're interviewing right now for that. We're interviewing for the motor repair person, and we're interviewing right now for the asphalt person.
Yep.
We've hired the clerk.
You hired the
We
clerk.
hired a clerk,
Okay. At that salary?
absolutely.
Okay. So can you clarify to me then on the clerk, because you have another administrative clerk, can you just address the difference in salaries?
Steps,
Steps.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an entry level clerk
correct.
versus
Somebody who's been
somebody
here
who's been a
for,
while.
Are you looking at the .5, Counselor?
No, no, no.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
So the administrative clerk you just mentioned on the bottom of the page,
Correct.
it's 1 FTE at 33,838.
that's
Right.
step 1.
That's just step 1.
Well, step
Okay.
1 and then for 2 months, step 2, but yes.
Okay, so that's all that is. And you said that position is filled.
It's filled.
So essentially you have 2 vacancies in streets and highways.
Well, he said he's interviewing for all
We're
3 of
we're
them.
interviewing
Gonna
right
be
now, and we're very close to,
Okay, so gonna be 2 essentially.
correct.
All right, cool. That's all I have for streets and highways, so I'll yield for the time being.
Council C5, Council Pereira?
How much of streets and highways are we doing on our own? We have that machine that fills potholes. I was at a couple of feasts last week, and a couple of men came over and we were talking about the potholes, and they asked, they hadn't seen that machine. And some of the work that's done by other individuals, gas company or whomever, if those start to sink, who's monitoring that for you to go out there and have them come back and fix it?
That's the engineering group.
Yeah.
If it's a third party, they're responsible
Then
for
Dan
it.
Aguirre would
Dan
send
Aguirre.
somebody out again. And are we using the pothole machine? Are you using that?
Well,
In-house?
It's out every day, Counselor, absolutely.
It is out every
It's out
day.
every day.
I haven't seen it, I guess
We have locations where if you want, we can get you the locations where we're,
Point
No.
of clarification, just how many potholes do we do a day roughly, Mr. Alvaro?
it depends. Charlie, what do you think? Charlie?
Oh,
How many potholes do we do a day,
Just
Charlie?
ballpark.
ballpark at 30, 40, it depends on.
30 or 40?
Yeah, it depends on location, if they're all on one grid, or if they're spread across the city, how many pothole trucks. We have 2, and if it's one and he's spread out, he could be doing large ones. It could be the less, there'll be less.
I know they're all different size potholes,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how many we're doing
We
ballpark.
do about
If
30 a
they're-
day?
If they're infrareding them, it's gonna take a little longer.
They should be infrareding
Yeah,
them for them to
they're gonna
last.
last.
I've noticed that a lot of them around manhole covers, a lot of cuts, driving down Bedford Street, I've seen a few, and on Columbia Street, I saw some too. I don't know what, if that's something that's happening. I never noticed that before, as much as I notice now. Well, it's good to know that they're out there. But the concern was if they're being done, are they being done right? And a lot of gentlemen I spoke to, the 2 gentlemen that I spoke to, both worked construction and, knew how to do it. And my father was a construction foreman, so I know. You don't just fill a pothole, you have to cut it. You have to get a square there, you have to cut it. You just can't put asphalt and go back and forth with a tire. And that was being done years ago. Thank God today we're not doing that anymore. All right, I just wanted to know about that. I had,
Yeah, the asphalt and concrete group are out every day.
good.
Thank you,
With
Council.
that, I yield.
Thank you. Council C2, Council Dion.
Back on that question, not really a budget question, I suppose, but that curve near Gold Mills Avenue, is that gonna be addressed?
We have a list
Because
of,
it's really degraded much more than it was before. And I sense accidents coming soon. Because when you go around that corner, you literally feel your car jumping across the road.
so we have a list of areas that we're going to tackle within the near future. And it's a combination between the engineering group versus our group. We're in the maintenance, hole repair, pothole repair, concrete, small patches. So that could be under the engineering group, depending on the size, if they're contracting that, or it'd be under us. I could let you know
Yeah, take a
what
look,
the
please.
status is.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it, because that's right at the school besides.
Right.
So I'm saying one of these days, something is going to happen, because like I said, that has severely degraded since last fall.
What was the area again?
It's right, Globe Mills Avenue
Mill-
and Bay
Globe Mill.
Street, that curve right there. Go ahead.
Somebody did mention that, I was with the mayor, Gates of the City, somebody came and mentioned that, that
It's
particular
bad.
corner. I think I called you and
It-
said, I did, yeah.
It's notoriously been a
I
concern
forget,
for
like, I
years, so.
make so many calls during the day and email, I forget. But, yeah, he had talked about that. But you want ridges, go up Pleasant Street.
All right, Council, let's get back to the,
Then
let's
you
let's
have
get back to the meeting, please. Council C2, you have the
I
floor.
laughed at her, she's good.
Let's
No,
see,
she's not
so-
good, she's still talking.
So at this point, we're still streets and highways. I'll yield for now. I'm gonna wait for solid waste and parks.
Thank you. Council seat 7, Council
No,
President.
I'm good.
All right, so just a carryover question. I don't understand, I want to clarify this from the other night. So, Mr. Demmead, who's sitting at the table, what is his title as of right now? Is it still Director of Community Maintenance?
He is the Director of Community Maintenance,
Okay,
yes.
so he's currently filling in parks right now. So we're in this kind of weird transition time of what, now that Ms. Smith's retired. So do we know what's gonna happen in the next, shortly, as far as parks are concerned and DCM and all that? Do we have a sense of that yet?
Well, the council, the city council had concerns about the type of work that we're doing. And the mayor and myself, we, knowing that Ms. Smith has been out for a long time, Mr. Demney was asked to go over there and start getting things taken care of. And he's doing an excellent job. And we're doing a lot of work. If you notice, there's a lot of items on that list that have been needed for a while. So
Absolutely.
that was the concern. That's been the concern. We have other departments that are in good shape, but that's one of the ones that we're looking at really making a strong point at this point.
Okay, so that's something that's gonna probably change in the near future as far as what's happening with that.
Again, we have no idea what the outcome's gonna be.
Sure.
We're hoping that there is some modification shortly.
Okay, and to clarify, you said the other night, that as far as Mr. Demmead's responsibilities as DCM director, you have supervisors
Correct.
filling in those.
And I'm
those-
working with the supervisors at this point. correct.
Okay, so jumping to parks, and it goes back to what we're talking about. So as far as the line item for the director of parks for the rest of this fiscal year, Emily,
Are we getting to solid waste?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, but we can, let them keep going in, and we'll just, they're here to answer. Like I said earlier, I'll bring them all down, just, you can open it up and go back and forth. It's easier.
My apologies.
No, you're good, go ahead.
All right, so for the rest of this fiscal year and then going forward, as far as that salary is concerned, is there gonna be a turnover to free cash for the rest of the fiscal year for this year?
So for the rest of this fiscal year, probably not, because she's gonna have a sizable payout because she has been here for a long time. So this year, likely, I mean, there'll be, I'm sure, some dollars, but nothing sizable.
Okay, and then next year, if we go into FY '26, at least for the time being, nobody will be in that position.
Well, so, yeah, there definitely needs to be a long-term plan. I think right now, there is no long-term plan because, she was out and a need was there, so he kind of jumped in. And I think once this peak season kind of comes to an end, we'll be sure to have a full plan in place. So the goal would be to obviously utilize what's there, before the end of the fiscal year in '26. So there wouldn't necessarily be a massive turn back.
Okay, I'll yield to my colleagues so we can talk solid waste first.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome, anytime.
I just want to point out, it brought to
I
my,
was gonna go along with, no.
Go ahead.
Oh, my
you guys all set? Just want to point out, I was made aware that Council Dion, the street that you're talking about, Mr. Aguirre, Dan Aguirre is currently working on, it's Chase Street, I believe it is.
Bay Street.
All right. Well, I heard he's working on Chase, so Mr. Oliver, you can touch base with Mr. Aguirre, and he probably is looking into it. Where Globe Mills is, I think it's
Globe
Chase Street.
Mills, no, it's Globe Mills Avenue comes out from the school
Okay,
to Bay Street. And
Right.
it's the curve on, directly on Bay Street.
okay.
Yep,
I know exactly where it is.
yep.
Counselor in C2, do you have, do you want,
All right, so what are we doing? We're gonna start solid waste now?
Solid waste first, yeah.
Okay.
listen, it's very simple. You want me to go by what's in front of us, or like I said earlier, we'll bring them all down. If people want to just ask questions, and we'll go, it doesn't matter. So we'll stick by the book then. Solid waste, Counselor in C2.
Okay, solid waste. So, it was the night before last we were talking about this, and I brought up, early termination fees for the contract if we had gone out for an RFP and gotten somebody, so in year 7, if we had terminated the contract, it was $821,668, not $8 million, as was quoted by Attorney Thomas. So,
He started out at 400,000. Attorney Thomas started out at $400,000 to terminate the contract, then he jumped to 8 million.
he jumped to 8 million, and
For
I said,
400,000.
no way. I said, last year, this year would be, and this year would only be 200,000, or actually, yeah, in the year 10, 200,000 to cancel a contract. So are we reaching out to a multitude of companies? How are we handling this moving forward?
So we'll do the RFP process, and that will go out to obviously anybody and everybody, but we do plan to obviously just ping those certain companies as well to make sure that they see that the RFP is out there.
And are we doing it as, are we looking for a company that does it all, or are we going to be piecemealing it out again?
So the way that we were doing RFP, he described the other night, was that we would do technically a menu, the way we would
A
bid
la
it
carte.
out, yeah. So ideally, we would get one person to do it all, and we think that that will be the cheapest, but in case somebody doesn't come in at that, we don't want to have to then rebid the whole process, so we'll let them do pieces if other people want to or need to, so that we can make sure that we have the best options.
So a company can give a price strictly for collection, or collection and something else?
Correct.
Or if they want to do it for all of it, they can?
Correct, yeah. Because otherwise, we would have to go back out. So if we just put it out for everything and said they had to do everything, if we didn't get that or get the right, the rates that we wanted to, we would have to start the
We have to
process
go
over
out
again to do
again.
the pieces. So we just figured we would, ask for it all, but technically offer them to bid certain pieces of it as well in case we need that option.
Mr. Olivera, do you agree with that? Sorry.
Absolutely. So when you write a spec, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself, and you want to at least leave some options. So by having a company bid on the whole item, that would, if that's going to be more expensive than us doing little parts of that, if there's a major savings to us, that's the goal.
Okay. Now, we have we have $16 million appropriated for Lewiston Street. Is there anything in the pipeline at Lewiston Street to assist in any of this? What exactly is that going to be?
I'm glad you asked.
Oh, good, I'm glad.
So what we did is we put that, we saw what the building looked like, and if you ever took a tour of the
Oh, I
building,
did.
in 2010, we took down the stacks because there was a moratorium on burning. We knew that wasn't going to happen any longer. We took down the stacks. After the stacks were taken down, a new roof was supposed to be laid out on there, and that's 2012 timeframe. We started in 2010, 2012. That roof never was put on.
Right.
Now, we have a bad situation of 10 years of the building bleeding, and that is going to put a new roof on the building. But before they do that, they needed to do a forensics on the steel beams to make sure that those were in good condition. They were in good condition. They're going to be stripped of any potential rust, and they're going to be made hole. They're gonna make sure that the structure is gonna be safe. They'll add the roof, and then they'll clean out all the items within that burning section, and we'll have a clean space in that to try perform a MRF building for recycling. That's the goal. We initially expected to be a full budgeted, but we couldn't find all the funds for the MRF, but we're hoping that we can get some funds through grants to make sure that we can get the equipment for that. The other component to that was phase one, that was a phase 3. The phase 1 would be the main entrance to drive up, and then you have an easier way for residents to drop off their recycles or any other items. That has been now put back to the drawing board because the lack of funds, because we did find some hot spots under the asphalt, and those are smaller areas, so, and then the phase 2 would be the salt shed. The salt shed is in decrepit condition. We're going to need a new salt shed, and that's where the 16 million is coming from. And as I mentioned, we literally had to pull the renovation of the inside of the office space and break room, and facilities is doing that in-house and a massive savings by doing that.
Is there anything in this that would involve a grinder so that we could handle our own C&D again, or handle mattresses perhaps at a lesser rate?
Everything that you're referring to, we've talked about, Mr. Demney, myself, and the group, we have talked about that, but that's not part of the $16 million at this point.
If somebody wants to get rid of a storm door right now, how do they, is that a bulky item?
That's construction debris, so
That
that
is
would have to,
C&D.
they wouldn't be able to take that.
So if somebody doesn't have a vehicle and can't bring a storm door to New Bedford, what do? It's a problem. Actually, an employee was asked that question today by somebody that called to ask how to get rid of their storm door. And they said, go to New Bedford. Said we can't. Well, that's what you have to do. So the person got a little frustrated and said, oh, maybe I should just throw it in the woods like everybody else does. And the employee responded, and if you do, I'll call the police on you. With that, I yield. Sorry.
Thanks, Council. Just want to bring it to everyone's attention again, getting back to that intersection, Bay Street, Chase Street, Globe Mills Avenue. Mr. Aguirre is in the process of getting a procurement for that. It's over $30,000. It is expected to be completed within the next 30 to 45 days,
Awesome.
just so we'll know. So I
Thank
guess we had the whole section there all commingled.
Yeah, it's a long stretch.
I'm so glad Mr. Aguirre watches our meetings. Thank you, Mr. Aguirre.
Council
Mr.
C5, you have
Oh.
the floor now. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh, you want me to?
Just figure I'd let you know that before you
I'm
start
kind of
speaking.
like, I don't know who's to the right, to the left.
Very good, just pay attention.
Mr. Olivera, what about the pit there at DCM? They had filled that in. What is that filled in with?
Council, I wasn't here when that happened. I've heard little rumblings about it, but right now it's capped. We're not gonna do
Oh, it's
any-
capped.
Well, it's filled. I mean,
It's filled. But it's not.
It's concrete or asphalt? It's asphalt, right?
There's,
What's on it, Mr.
there is
Denby?
asphalt over, and then there's a concrete over a portion of it, and there's asphalt over the other side of it, so.
So it's filled. I mean,
It's
right now it's capped.
encapsulated by some.
It's
type of-
encapsulated.
It's capped. I mean, and you were talking about extensive thick walls, so if there was any liquid in there, it wouldn't leach. So, we're not doing anything. I heard someone say here at a meeting that the $16 million was for something like that. We're not touching any of that pit. The only thing associated with that, on the other side of the pit, there's a major wall. That's a direct opening into the actual building behind the building, so, and it works out perfect. We can have machinery come in, collect the recycling, and grab some money out of that.
Counselor Dion asked about a storm door. What if somebody had a gas grill that they wanted to get rid of? That they can get rid of?
Yeah, so that's not a construction debris, so,
Right.
yeah, so that's a
So a
bulky
gas
item.
grill or aluminum door. Do you know what I mean?
It's construction debris, that's the difference, so.
That's the definition of it.
Again, New Bedford, it just happened to be that Harvey's is down in that area, so
Right. But I mean, if I wanted to throw out an old gas grill, I get a sticker and they'll take it, but not for a storm door.
It's the
Seems odd.
regulations, Council, it's
I
the
know, but it
regulations.
just seems odd.
But you could, and I advise people if they had metal like that, to just bring it over to Mid-City Scrap, and they'll either
Where?
pay you, Mid-City Scrap, right
Oh,
in Westport.
Mid-City.
And they would either pay you for it, or you could just dispose of it for free. Either way, it's right there.
Yeah.
It-
Well,
but
I've
it
had
is
some metal
unfortunate
scrap
for-
like that, and I
yeah.
know a couple of guys that are scrappers, and I'll call them, hey, you can pick this up, and
Yeah.
they come and get it, but the side business.
Do you yield, Counselor?
I yield.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Pozo.
And are
Yeah.
we all set
If
with
I get
solid?
sidetracked, please, can we have one person speaking at a time,
Just wanna-
courtesy to the council that I just called upon?
Yeah, you can,
Thank you.
he can speak, yeah,
Thank you.
Just want
absolutely.
to clarify, we're done with solid waste?
Counselor in seat 8, Counselor Theft. That's what happens when I don't know what we're gonna do, so.
So I don't know who's, maybe for Emily, on the electric, solid waste 83, electricity. I don't see any budget on that one. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so, the electricity for solid waste was typically handled by facilities. Facilities handles usually the bills for all of the facilities. And that's how it was being handled in fiscal year '24. And so in fiscal year '25, I guess it was starting to be charged here, so we just decided that we would shift it back and keep it clean in one department. Kind of in the sense of thinking through the reorg too about, you know, who's, the person paying all of the bills sits up in facilities every day, so it just made sense to kind of shift it all back into one facilities budget for his departments.
So meaning this is always gonna be like,
Yeah, we'll
Zero?
keep it as zero and keep it up in facilities for this department now.
gotcha. And, next one is the natural gas. It's, budget at, 6,000, but projected 28,000.
So we have been having some bill paying errors being made, so looking through some of that, it doesn't all belong there is the best way to put that at this point in time. So it won't stay that way, and some of it we're actually looking to put it where it belongs soon. It was something that we noticed in doing these projections at this point, but we have to do, you know, the proper accounting procedures just to move it at this time. So that's, after looking through those bills, it'll be $6,000 about a year.
So right now, it's just, estimate.
Yeah,
Gotcha. With
an
that, I
estimate
yield.
that pointed out an error for us.
Thank you, Counselor. You yield? Does anyone else have any questions for solid waste?
One quick question,
Counselor
solid
seat
waste.
7, Counselor Pozo.
Yeah, Emily, where would, on the litter enforcement, so the fines that are given out for litter issues, where is that captured in your, general fund?
So it's under solid waste, and this, let me just take a step back. It has not always been under solid waste. We are now putting it under solid waste. So if you look at the resources by category on page 17, there's a whole solid waste category. Again, these local receipts categories come from DOR, our reporting agency. So there's a specific one for solid waste. So you'll see that violation fines is now in there. We just started shifting that over a couple of months ago, if that, so that's why there's such a small number now and there's no budget, but there will be, you know, budgeted in there for 50,000 now.
Do we have a sense in the current fiscal year, how much has been collected in violation fines for solid waste?
So part of the reason that we did pull them apart is because it was, going in one line item, that, one organ object code, and it was also in with the non-criminal violations, and so, to be honest with you, we were struggling to pull it out well, and so that's part of why we moved it out. So we're thinking around that $50,000 number is probably where we've been hitting. But I don't have a perfect math of it right now, which is, again, why we pulled it out.
Sure. Mr. Oliver, do you have a sense of how many violations were issued this year thus far for violations of trash?
I do not have that with me right now.
We definitely have it, though,
We
and can
have
send it
Could you
over.
get that to me and the rest of the council? How many have been issued? And I'm also curious, how many of them have been paid? And is that a situation, I don't know if, Emily, you can answer this, if the violations are not paid, is that something that's a lien later on?
It is now.
It
We
is.
just, I wanna say in 2022, we
Yeah.
shifted to that, 2023?
They just shifted over to that.
Okay.
It's something, it just, like Emily said, it's something they recently started to do, and it's become very effective. I know someone in this building that had a family member got liens because of a ticket, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you could get that report, just curious of how many have been issued in FY '25, and then how much have been paid since of those fines. All right, that's it for solid waste, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. Does anyone else have any questions on solid waste? Okay, moving on to the next one. I know we've had some discussion, but any questions for the Parks Department? Council seat 7, Council Reposo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, back to parks, and I will just say, Mr. Demmead, thank you for the work you've done thus far in the parks since you've
Thank
been,
you.
you know, and I can witness firsthand, umpiring down at Federal Little League so far this spring, and I've seen Mr. Demmead out and about making sure the fields are where they need to be, so I appreciate, you know, his service to, especially the youth of our community who are having a good time on that ball field, so I appreciate that. On R&M Buildings and Grounds, on page 86, there's an increase there from 75,000 FY '25 to 109,250. If you can address that for me, please.
So, that's from hearing council's concerns over the last several years that not enough is being done to maintain the parks and that we've been kind of chasing it. So, we looked at some of the budget numbers that were in there and kind of found some unspent things and increased that amount to make sure that we're doing more ahead of time rather than on the back end. Things that are smaller that aren't, I'm gonna say, considered capital,
Yep.
by being over, upwards of $20,000+ a piece, so.
I will say I appreciate that, because that's something that I've kind of been not so happy about over the years. It's nice to see that, because a little more investment in our parks, especially the ones that are being used by our kids, is important. So I do appreciate that increase in that, what's being done there. Mr. Demmead, on the list of employees, 17 FTEs altogether, essentially, outside of the Director of Parks and Rec, you have 2 vacancies, an MEO laborer and a head clerk. Is that still accurate?
No, the head clerk has been filled. In fact, the clerk started this Monday.
Oh, good.
So, that position's been filled. And, the vacancy has also been filled. I believe that is,
You're talking
Let
about
me
the MEO laborer number 2?
oh, the MEO labor, that is a vacancy.
That is a
That is
vacancy.
the only one left.
Okay.
And, the way the numbers were adding up, I wanted to wait until just about the end of this, budget to hire that one position on.
Okay. So, and just a general question to both you and Mr. Oliveira. I think it's questions in the past about the number of staff to maintain the number of parks we have. I would probably contest that's probably not enough to do truly all the work that is in the Parks Department. So, long-term plan for that at all?
Council, we're assessing that right
Yeah.
now. Mr. Demney just stepped into that position.
Of course.
We're going to assess to make sure that we get it right. But yes, we want to make sure that our lawns are in great condition.
It'll be part of the reorg.
Yeah, yeah, right, reorg part 2, as I call it. And I appreciate, but I think it's far beyond just the lawns. I think it's one just to cut the grass.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
there's a next step to that I would like to see, and I'm not in no way saying they're not maintaining the parks. I'm just saying, it's good, we can be great, we can be better, and that's where I'm trying to get to. Because I think it's far beyond just cutting the grass. There's more to be done to beautify our parks beyond where they are.
There's a lot of repairs that are needed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no doubt
Absolutely.
about it. There's some repairs.
And I know that some of your facilities folks have been out, again, just being where I am all day long, watching behind Father Travasso's park, and they're working on the tables and the benches and all that. So that's, I'm happy to see the collaboration that's happening, which is awesome. But just the parks as themselves, I think, Mr. Demmead and I took a walk down the path to Father Travasso's, talking about that between the school and the mill and what that path could be, and it could be cleaned up and things like that. So, I guess, like, when you look at those kinds of projects that are outside of just lawn mowing and weed whacking, those are the concerns where I say, okay, are we able to do that in-house without having to go out and contract and things like that? So that's kind of what I'm headed with that. But I won't go too much into it. Obviously, you're giving an analysis. He's stepping in now, maybe in the next few months, you'll be able to give us some more information of where you're going with it.
Sure.
Hopefully, I would appreciate that. Other purchase services, again, it's the famous question of the night for me, I guess. Just clarify, can you break that out for me? It's page 86.
I have it here.
So other purchase services.
Because I'm just getting myself familiar with a lot of these lines myself, so I went in today and I broke out some examples of them. But, it's buildings and grounds.
So that's really what, we do have items that we are purchasing from that. We just don't have that, those descriptions right now.
We can get that.
But it's gonna be entailed towards anything regarding the parks, absolutely.
Historically, what has it been for that line item? And you know, if I have the answer now, it's okay. You can get
Yeah.
back to me.
Yeah. We can definitely get that back to you.
Other purchase services, now I got it. It's, the alarm system that we have at the building and also down at Bicentennial Veterans Park.
Okay.
We pay for that alarm system in the monthly payments. There's another, lots of purchases, inspection stickers, inspections, and I believe a couple other miscellaneous things that don't fall under other lines.
Okay.
But that's,
Mr. Deming, where are you working out of now?
I work on the Middle Street.
Out of Middle Street, okay.
It's nice. It
All right.
really is. It's
So
quiet,
that's
serene.
that's still a thing. Okay. All right. That's all I have for parks. I'll yield, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Now I know what you do all day, Counselor, just look out the window at the park, see what's going on.
I'll never admit to that, Counselor.
Well, sometimes you just need to go outside and get some air, you know?
Yeah.
It happens.
I'm about to join him there, so.
We have a Father
Charlie, I was
Travassos.
talking to accountant seat 7, not you, Charlie.
Listen, it's a wonderful track at Father Travassos. It's a good walk when you need some air, so anytime.
Is there any other questions for the Park Department? Counselor seat 2, Counselor Dion.
I've always been confused as to why Parks pays the most in water and sewer rates.
This-
Does anybody yet have an explanation for that? It makes no sense. It seems to me that they have the fewest impervious surfaces.
It's all grass.
They water the grass.
Goes right into the grass.
Exactly.
I don't understand it either, but if it was just geographical
But we
area,
do
I
have
would
some parking
understand.
lots, we do have some parking lots, and that's probably where that's coming from.
But it went up another $57,000 this year. There is not a department in this budget book that had a significant increase. Matter of fact, a couple of departments went down. I mean, you look at the school department, there's a lot of schools and a lot of parking lots.
We don't put those numbers.
$275,000.
It's water too.
It's water and sewer.
You got buildings with water.
Right.
Are the splash pads part of this budget?
Yeah, but
Yes.
That's for
I don't think
That's
that,
a lot
Yeah,
of
but that's
water.
Yeah.
recycled water. That's not,
Recycled, yeah.
All of it?
no, I mean,
Yeah.
we don't, but.
I don't think that,
I think we can ask Paul about that if
Yeah.
you'd like.
that is a good question.
Yeah,
Good.
next time you
I'm sure
see,
he's got his
it
calculations.
it just has never made sense to me. And that's actually, I think, my only question, because I was gonna ask about the head clerk, and you do, oh, I know, speaking of manpower, that's what I was gonna say. Last year, there were 4 or 5 other vacancies in the budget for MEO Laborer 2, which ended up getting axed. And the statement was, well, we can still hire people, and then we can put that back in the budget if we have to. Why haven't we put those positions back in the budget where we're so understaffed in parks?
So Al and I actually just sorted through this morning to wrap our heads back around that, because it wasn't something that I had done and was a part of. So last year, there was 3 additional positions that were put into the budget book, but they weren't funded. And it was told if they're able to be filled, then we'll fund them. And so what's in here now, there is 1 additional position technically, because that one was filled. And so at this point in time, because they are working through sorting out what's actually needed and looking through those things, for right now, we just kind of left in there what had been filled. And and this vacancy, I think, actually wasn't a vacancy until we kind of updated it. So we left it in there just at that number for now, and it'll be part of kind of what we relook at. And we would rather come back down with a full plan to assess exactly what we need. But because they hadn't been filled, we went with what was funded and what we knew for sure we needed in this moment, and then we'll kind of circle back around with it.
Council, we're still assessing. We're still assessing to make sure that is the exact statement, is that we do need to fill those slots. We're still assessing at this point.
Okay, I think, obviously, I don't do your job, and I'm not an expert, but if facilities is having to be in the parks to repair and do maintenance, then obviously, we need more bodies in parks.
Council, those are separate type of trades that we're in there. I mean, you're not gonna ask someone that's an MEO laborer to do some of that work. They can do smaller projects like that, but they're not going to repair certain things. It's just not gonna happen. So what we're doing right now is we're sending our carpenters out there, we're sending electricians, plumbers out there to do that type of work. And rightly so. Those are buildings, those are comfort stations. So there's a lot of work that we're doing that hasn't been done throughout the years that we're just catching up right now. But, I mean, for example, we're the Maplewood Park. That building is a beautiful building. We're reviving it. You're not gonna ask the folks that are cutting that grass
No.
to do that type of work. So that's what we're talking. There's a lot of work that's on the list that you're not gonna have that type of
That is
staffing
not park,
to do.
that is
Right.
not,
I mean, right now, we have a person that's the parks maintenance person, and he's doing a great job maintaining the equipment. So that's what you want to do. That's what the work that they do. Focusing, because it's a building, facilities can do all our city buildings. So we're reviving that, and we're using subs as needed to do certain work that just is gonna take us a lot longer to do now that we can focus in other areas. We're strategizing our staff.
so that leads me to think, so we're putting in a state-of-the-art skateboard park. We've put in a number of pickleball parks. There was a lot done in our parks in the last couple of years with opera funding. So it begs the question, do we need to create a position in parks that's a more specified position to be able to maintain and take care of all of those things? It's stuff we didn't have before. So I don't know if I'm asking the question properly, but.
I see exactly where you're going with, Counselor, but the thing is one of the efficiencies that Counselor Reposa was talking about, being able to work with the facilities group to go to the parks. Now you don't have to put that other person there. We have the equipment, we have the materials, we have the staffing, the experience. We can get some of that work done. Now, granted, you're talking about a brand-new skate park. There's none of us are gonna have staffing to maintain that the way it really is supposed to do. Within the next few years, it's gonna have to probably be resurfaced, and that's where you get a vendor to get that type of work done. But I don't believe that that's necessary right now. I believe the way we're working, the flow, it shouldn't have to worry whether it's parks, facilities going into parks. It's one umbrella, and that's the way we're looking at that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the philosophy. I was just wondering if,
So I think the analysis is to find out, do we have the capacity to do what the parks folks are doing right now? Now, if it's determined that there's some other need, then we'll assess that. But if it's something that we already have as the facilities group, that facilities group is the City of Fall River group. It's not just facilities. So I think it's just, we have the materials, we have the equipment, we have the capacity. Now we can go get that work done.
okay, thank you. That I yield.
Thank you, Council. Council in seat 7, Council Pozo.
Yeah. Emily, I guess this is probably the time to ask this question about the water and sewer. That's blank on the.
On the revised pages.
Yeah. So can you speak to that? Yeah, I think
I can.
There are a few in this. So
Yep,
how
so-
did that come to be?
So in the I'm gonna say revision, resubmittal, so it's really a resubmission. So in the resubmission process, from the directed budget to this one, we heard the concerns about where some of the funding was going and what it was doing, and the way that we were able to kind of reallocate the cost burdens that have come online this year. For 1 year, to be clear, for 1 year is the only goal that we talked to Water and Sewer, and we're going to have the city departments that are listed in here, not including schools, but we're going to not incur those bills this year until we're able to fully flesh out, a plan with the indirects and with all of the costs that need to be included in this budget and with all of our revenue sources for fiscal year 27. So it's about $400,000 across all of the departments in the general fund, not including schools that had water, sewer in their budgets that were pulled out.
Okay, so in that same vein, how does that now affect on the other side at the water and sewer indirects line?
So in the indirects line, it doesn't change the indirects because we were paying those bills directly, so those were direct charges that were being done. So it's potentially shorting their revenue about $200,000. It works out around that, about $200,000 between water and then $200,000 to sewer. So it's just been a conversation of kind of managing to those cuts because there weren't other lines cut in his department. He's able and willing to manage to that this year, knowing that, he was able to buy some capital this year and get that out of the way so that he wouldn't need to buy it next year and can absorb that for the 1 year.
So it won't necessarily be a problem where we're gonna run into a deficit in water and sewer because of the change?
Correct.
Okay.
And if it is at that point, we're going to revisit it together. Ultimately, it's something that we'll have that conversation if he runs into that issue, and we'll look at where we're at in the general fund and kind of have a conversation about what's needed to make sure that everything stays whole this year.
Yeah, okay. And Ms. Oliveira, just to clarify, on the splash pads, so that is an incurred cost for water and sewer usage, right?
Correct.
So I heard you say recycled water. I was like,
Well, it's not something that we're utilizing that water and it's discarding
Yeah.
all the time. So there is a component that is being pumped.
it
A
filtered.
filtration.
what
So
have you.
it is being filtered,
Okay.
but I mean, it's,
Recycled water doesn't sound too
Yeah.
exciting to me, so, all right, yeah, that was the clarification. I'm all set with parks. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield.
Thank you, Council. Council C5, Council President.
The question I have on the water bills for the park department, fire department, whatever, are those estimated or do we have meters there? Do you have meters, Mr. Denby?
There are meters.
At all your parks, you have water meters?
I believe so, yeah, even on the, splash pads. Yep, they're on there.
All your departments,
yes.
Mr. Oliveira, have meters now?
I know fire just got theirs within this fiscal year. They didn't have them before and they were using estimates, but they do have them now. So I think that fire was the last one that didn't have the meters.
So the water department was estimating the amount of water that fire
Correct.
department, okay. I'm glad that they finally have meters. We've been pushing for that for a couple of years. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any further questions for the Park Department? Moving on, we go to cemeteries.
Mr.
Sorry.
President, Mr. Tiff has a question.
Just a quick question, because I'm flipping from,
All right, so hold on one second. It's very, just raise your hand and I'll call on you.
okay.
Council in seat 8, Council Fifth.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just a quick question, because I seen the same item from page 86 on park. What is mean service out of range? Is that like do equipment update?
No, so service out of rank is, we kind of talked about, it's in a couple of departments that have these union positions where, if you have somebody, I'm gonna use a very bad example because it's all I know off the top of my head, but if you had, say, a laborer filling in on a carpenter job for a day, if they had those qualifications and were able to, the difference in those salaries, they'd be eligible to get paid that for a day. Typically, it's used maybe a little bit more than a day, a longer term thing. So again, usually when there's a vacancy, somebody's kind of backfilling in, so then there's usually savings in another place that they're just stepping up temporarily, and it's really using the vacancy savings. So that's another one that, in some of these, I'm gonna say smaller departments that have been using service out of rank in that way, we pulled out the budget for it because again, there should be a vacancy savings to absorb that cost. It's not like a regular occurring thing for a lot of these departments.
Understand.
Council, that's a union, that's collective bargaining, that's in the collective bargaining.
Also, thank you. With that, I yield.
I can give you a little better example to help you understand it if you like. If you were a principal in a school and the principal who is on maternity leave, and you grab the teacher that doesn't make what a principal makes, and you have her fill the principal's position in the time being, that would be service out of rank, and they would get that additional pay that the principal gets.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
No
President.
problem. Council C2, Council Diana.
Yeah, so you just said temporary. So service out of rank is always supposed to be temporary? What-
That's what I'm saying. So sometimes it is. So like if you look at like police and fire, theirs is typically more long-term. I'm just saying in these smaller departments, they tend to be because there's a vacancy within parks, within some of the other, what's the word? Trades positions, they tend to be more temporary in that sense. And that's part of the problem that I was trying to describe with the facilities with the clerk, is that there is no position in there right now that has that job. There is a position that exists that does that job, but just not in that department. So that's why it's budgeted for in that way, because it's not like there's a vacancy savings within that department to absorb it.
So are we to expect that this will go on for forever? And I only asked
No.
that question because the first time that came up was in last year's budget. And I brought it up because I was not happy about it. And
Correct.
said we had a lot of clerks that deserve stipends that don't get them because we have tons of clerks who do work above and beyond their job.
Correct. It's not
So
something
so this is gonna be her second year already doing it, so.
And I don't have a time frame. That would be a better probably conversation with HR on the exact time frame of it, but it's not supposed to be permanent, which is why it's being done as service out of rank. I think through the reorg is what we were talking
That was the
about
goal.
with that change.
That was the goal. The last time we talked about it, that was definitely the goal. It went down, and we're still waiting on any changes.
I don't want to sound like a wise guy, and I don't want to sound really negative, but I feel like this is my 6th year sitting here, and I feel like we're forever told about plans, and we're planning, and we're looking, and we're this, and we never execute anything, from the trash to I don't even know what. And I just feel like we're always treading water and never making it to shore. Do you ever feel like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Often.
Can you tread water?
No,
Oh,
can't swim.
you're bumming. Then you better stay
I'm
on the
from Florida,
carry
so
side.
it's fine. I tread very well.
So are we actually really maybe gonna make it to shore in a couple of projects this year?
We, especially with the reorg, I mean, we're really hoping to move forward on that. There were a couple of roadblocks outside of even the negotiation parts that we have been working through, and I think we're both really hopeful to take steps this year.
This year, hopefully. See? Okay.
Unfortunately, we're only 2 people in the COG, so we can only guarantee so much on our own.
Okay, with that I yield. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Council. We don't make it to shore, we'll send a rescue boat. Especially Council C1 if you can't swim. Council C1, you have the floor now.
So just, and again, not trying to beat a dead horse, but so what does the project manager, what's the salary?
Give me a second. I do have it. I don't have it in front of me. I thought I did. I believe it's 60, yeah. I believe it's 60,000,
60?
yeah. I can get you a more exact paperwork behind it,
Yeah, if you
because
could.
I don't have
just-
it in front of me.
It's in the low 60s.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the dollar amount is, because obviously if it's service out of rank, then obviously we're supposed to be paying the difference, and I'm just curious if that ties out to, if the 13,000 added to the salary is the difference of what the project manager makes. With that, I yield, thank you.
Thank you, Council. Are there any further questions for cemeteries?
No.
Cemeteries?
Council C7, Council, yeah.
Yes, thank you,
Council
Mr.
C7,
President.
Council Reposo. If you don't have a question, that's fine, but just don't say no for
Yeah.
everybody else.
So on cemeteries, just a real quick question. So we currently still don't have a director of cemeteries.
Correct.
So, Mr. Oliver, are you assuming those roles, or
I am.
supervisor is?
I am.
Okay, so who's the next person in charge in cemeteries? The foreman?
We have, correct, that's Chris Martin. He's currently in the trees.
He gets
Okay.
paid service out of rank
Okay, that's gonna be
to
my next
backfill
question.
in that department.
Okay.
And you don't see that budgeted because there is a
No.
vacancy.
Okay, so he's getting service out of rank.
And it's charged to cemeteries.
It's charged to cemetery. So where is that reflected? That's in the service out of rank, which is,
So,
Blank.
under salaries and wages, so again, because we don't budget, we're now moving towards not actually budgeting for it because the vacancy savings is covering it, but you can
Okay.
see in the 25 projected that he's been getting paid that. So you can see the $7,000 there that he's been getting paid.
but for FY '26, it's blank.
It's blank because he's either gonna get paid for it out of the vacancy, or we'll fill the vacancy and he'll stop getting paid it.
Okay. So, Mr. Olivera, any plan to fill the position? Has there been any luck to fill the position?
Say the words.
Reorg too.
I
It's been
know,
in the reorg too for
I
a
know.
while.
We roll our eyes when we say reorg too, just so you know, so you
No, no,
feel
I-
better.
I-
We feel
I-
the same way.
Yeah, likewise. And the working foreman there, filled or not filled at this point?
Yes,
Which one?
it's filled.
Filled, okay. Filled recently or
A few months ago.
a few months? Okay. Okay. And then I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, as far as the cemeteries as a whole, remind me, there was a plan or analysis done of the cemeteries, the city cemeteries, some time ago, as far as, I think Mr. Perino was still here when he talked about it.
Correct.
So there's no concern as far as space going forward in our
Not at
city
this
cemeteries?
point right now.
Okay, cool.
We've had a renovation of that space, and we're not considering anything
As
else
in,
at this
as in
point.
Oak Grove Cemetery?
Correct.
Okay, cool. All right, I yield on cemeteries.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any further questions for cemeteries? Council C5, Council Vice
I'll
President
just
Perez.
add on the cemetery, I understand you're gonna do reorg too, which is fine. But I think that Mr. Martins is handling, that cemetery the best that I've ever seen it handled. And for him to not be making the money to do the job that he does, because service out of rank isn't counting for his retirement, is it? No,
No.
it doesn't. And that's not fair. So we have to treat workers fairly.
So
And I would encourage the administration to make that promotion. Until you do your reorg, you're still gonna need somebody there. So if you wanna put cemeteries and trees together, I think you could handle that. I personally think parks, we have more of them, that you need somebody to handle parks and somebody to do parks, to be a little bit more creative and look at parks that we're not using and things that people want parks to be. We need soccer fields. Lots of people now play soccer. If you have fields that are not playing T-ball, then convert them. Softball fields, we did pickleball courts all over the place, because there was a need for that. So I think we need to look at what the need is, for people to get outside recreation. And I would encourage that too, to happen before your reorg 2 or reorg 3, whatever reorg you're doing this time. With that, I yield. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Counselor.
Denmead.
There being no further questions, Council C8, Council Fifth.
Mr. Oliver, other improvement, what kind of improvement are you planning to do?
Other improvements.
It's
So,
on page 89.
Right.
Last one on page 89, the last line item.
Yep.
89.
The
So
last item.
there are, if you notice, there's a wall around the cemetery. There's some pointing that has to happen around that cemetery. So there's, and we need, and some of the fencing is in rough condition, so that money is gonna be able to take care of some of those smaller items. And the other component to that is where, there's an area that the staff will take a break there, and right now, under this budget, we have a mini split going in there to give them some heat and to give them some air conditioning. So that is a component of that, but it's not part of this budget right now.
I
But we
see.
are doing some work at both of those buildings.
I see. How often do you do the under component? How often to make the improvement? Like-
Well, it hasn't been done in a while, so we are making sure that we're beautifying those two buildings at this point, and that is on our list.
Okay, thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions for cemetery? Council C5, Council
Just,
Fred.
Emily, in the departments that we looked at so far, have there been any increases in pays in salary in any of these departments?
And nothing more than the typical union agreement ones with the step increases or the COLAs that,
Just the COLAs?
just the contractual ones at this point.
Okay. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Debbie, oh, Counselor seat two,
Sorry.
Counselor Tian. No, that's okay.
She sparked it. So on the working foreman on page 90, the vacancy, that job is being posted at $7,800 less than it was in the last year's budget. Why?
Just the union step one is what that pay is, and so the other person that was in it had several steps before, so that should be the difference. This is per the union contract, this amount, so if it was something different before
Entry
and it was
level.
still a vacancy, I don't know how that decision was made to budget that way, but these are all pulled from the union contracts for what the starting salaries are.
So I know in streets and highways overall, the salary, the personnel, the salaries from last year's budget to this year was plus 91,000. So that's all to do with union increases?
So from FY '25 to FY '26 in streets and highways, it's less about 50,000.
Well, if you go to last year's budget book, which is what I did, and you take and compare person to person across from here to here, it was actually an increase of 91,000. I know that doesn't make sense, but,
So that was, I mean, part of the, I think during last year's budget hearings, there was some confusion on that of how some of the salaries didn't necessarily match to even other people in the positions and then to the union contract. So again, I think there was estimates that weren't quite accurate that were in there before. And then it's just all been right-sized now. So I think that we kind of knew there were some errors in the way that those employees and the amounts were grabbed for the previous budget book. And that's why we kind of revised the way we were going about that. In the past, the departments were responsible for just sending in their lists. And so this time we took a step back and we pulled them all down ourselves on the finance team and went through position by position to make sure that the salaries matched the union contracts and were complete and accurate. So we just kind of had to revise the process. So it's just to correct things at this point to make sure that it matches to the way it should be done.
so essentially, what you're saying is then last year's salaries were understated? Not stated correctly?
Not stated correctly is what I would say. I can't say over under at this, I mean, there's too many numbers that live in my brain at this point, so to say exactly which way, but we just found some things that didn't necessarily match the contract, but again, I think it was because estimates were put on there that weren't obviously confirmed yet, so the way it shakes out on the back end is not the same.
Okay, thank you. Then I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. There any further questions for cemeteries? Seeing done, we'll move on to the next one, which is trees. Counselor seat seven, Counselor Pozo.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 92 in trees is $120,000 decrease, I should say, for other purchase services.
So that was a contract to get the trees, maintenance caught up, and the contract is actually for 3/15. The contract was, I think, originally supposed to go during the last fiscal year, but it actually started in April, and so it's gonna cross the 2 fiscal years, so that's kind of the divide that you're seeing
The
happen.
balance of
Yeah.
the two. Okay. And we do have forester on staff, so we know that's all taken care of. I guess my only question is, I know there was a big push to get trees planted. There was a program launched to plant some trees. And this is not a question you can answer now unless you can. An idea of where we are with that. Have a lot of residents taken part of that program? I'm just curious, has it grown? I know there's been tree planting going on throughout the city.
And it's gonna start right back again, Council, yeah. So we
Tis the
again,
season.
during the winter, we couldn't do anything, so now it's planting time again, and we have an arborist working with Mr. Martin at this point.
Cool. Awesome. That's all I got for trees. I yield.
Thank you. Counselor seat eight, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Anyone else have a question for trees?
Nope, I'm good.
Move on to snow. Counselor seat seven, Counselor Pozo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Emily, just a curiosity, as far as snow removal expenses, it's pretty much a replica of FY '25. It was,
You can thank the state.
there you go. It was a pretty good winter, I would say, so, that's a good thing in that regard. As far as the rate per hour for plowing Mr. Olivera, is that, looking ahead, is that changing? Do we know? Or,
I think we made an adjustment in the last couple years.
Okay.
So I think we don't see anything right now, and we can't forecast anything at this point.
no, I'm saying like as far as because you pay the people that plow an hourly rate to plow when you hire them. Is that gonna change from last year to this year?
We can't determine that right now. A lot of times was, we would have to find out what the other neighboring towns were.
I was gonna say, what drives that number
Yeah, a
essentially?
lot of times it's that, and a lot of times it's the state, finances. So if they do an increase, then we lose, employees, vendors, I should say.
Vendors, yeah.
Yep.
And how many of our city employees get a snow stipend? Do you have a number?
It should be in here. Yep, it is in here. So we have various departments that do have snow stipends.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm just looking for an overall number of how many city employees get a snow stipend for this purpose.
Snow stipend, we have, it's $63,000 that we have for snow stipend.
That's in one department.
That's.
Yeah,
that-
we'd have to
correct.
pull it. It's literally all throughout, anybody that kind of qualifies.
Right. Yeah.
But then they also have to qualify for the stipend, so they have to be eligible to be able to plow, but then they have to meet certain qualifications of showing up for it, so
Right.
we could pull the exact number, because it's definitely very widespread.
Okay, and
Yeah,
is
I
it
thought
a
you were talking about-
flat stipend for everybody?
Oh, it depends,
amount?
yes, well, it depends on the union. And
Okay.
Different types of union.
All right,
different-
so I'll take that list offline if you could, just
Okay.
to break that out for me, that'd be great. That's all I have for snow removal.
Thank you,
Mr.
Council.
President.
Council,
Thank
to
you.
answer your question, usually the price is determined by the amount of snow we have in a particular year. If they're trying to get more vendors, because they get a lot of heavy snow coming down time after time, to get more people involved, they up the price.
Makes sense.
That's usually what happens to it.
Got it, thank you.
Are there any other questions for snow removal?
No.
No other questions? Okay. Thank you guys for coming down, and we'll move on to the general government, city clerk, city council.
Time to eat.
Thank you.
City council take a 3-minute recess, 5-minute recess. City Council reconvene. Now move into general government, city clerk. Does anyone have any questions for the city clerk? Not gonna move on till 10 questions are asked to the city clerk. Just joking, you do a tremendous job.
I do.
City Council, C5, Council Vice.
Are we
President.
buying any new equipment for the clerk's office or for the council office? Or
I can't afford it.
A whole bunch of council proposals.
are we?
No, we just said we have a basic account that, for office supplies, but we don't have any plans to buy anything major.
And they're not gonna finish the rugs here like they were?
That doesn't come out of our
No, it
budget
doesn't
anyway,
come
it
out of
comes
you.
out of
But have you heard
facilities.
rumors about that? No?
I haven't heard of that yet, and your guy Al would have been great to talk to
Yeah,
about that with the
okay.
facilities, but I can follow up with him. I think he got out of here very quickly.
No, I'm just, that's the least of my worries. I think there's other things that are more important. But, thank you. Our city clerk does a
Squeaky
wonderful
chairs.
job. I don't have any questions for her.
Yes, I've enjoyed working with her for 6 years,
Yes.
I actually have a question.
5.5.
As far as the postage that are we doing okay with that, or do we need to increase that at all for the notices that have to go out?
Postage.
For postage,
Yeah, for mailings.
we changed from the requirement of registered mail to certified mail, so it did save us quite a bit, so.
Good.
Okay, and as far as notifying the butters and for all of those as well?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No more further questions from me. So there being no further questions for the city clerk?
No. We have a
None?
great
City
group.
council? Any questions for the council themselves? You good?
No, we just,
There being no further questions.
we cut
Motion
everything
adjourned.
we could from the council. I think when I
Motion to table.
started here, we
Does
did
anyone,
travel.
do we have any other questions about anything else, or any of the appropriations that came down, or we can do it Monday, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's fine. Is that when we're gonna discuss the changes?
We can discuss whatever you want to discuss.
If you want to talk about any of the changes today, you can. If not, we can do it Monday as well.
I would just wait until all the councils are.
I agree.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
just go.
Okay.
Motion
Yep.
to table.
Motion to table has been
Second.
made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion tabled.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? City council meeting is now adjourned.
What
See you-
about,